colleagues, take your places, please. And so I reintroduce the participants of our discussion, our session. Kirill, Pronin, Director of the Department of Financial Technologies of the Bank of Russia. Damir, Battulin, Director of Development of Digital Channels of the Alfa-Bank. Oleg, Komlik, Director of the Department of Digital, our DOM.RF Bank. Chernoshekin, Senior Vice President of the Promsvyazbank, Power, a chain stock company. Igor, Managing Director of the electronic platforms of the Moscow Stock Exchange. Sergey Putyatinskiy, Deputy Chairperson of the Board of Directors of the Moscow Credit Bank. Dear colleagues, as you understand that on the basis of the previous session where we were talking about this surfing, the aspect we are going to discuss, we're supposed to discuss, is one of the most relevant, one of the most burning aspects and topics, the open API, open banking, open finances, open data. I let myself brief a little bit on these essences, connection and the connection of them. Open banking is when you see interfaces in the bank. Open finances cover a broader spectrum of participants. Open data is about expanding outside of the financial market, and our target structure. Open data can assume a lot of potential aspects: opening trade platforms, opening service organizations that provide services for different daily needs, of opening infrastructural organizations, house amenities, communication companies, and energy producing and generating companies. We're trying to understand what these real effects provide for the economy, first of all for the financial sector, for competitiveness of the market, what these technologies are giving, these approaches are giving. Just a little bit of introductory. This is, in fact, the aspect, as you understand, is not new. It's been developing in the world over the few years. The first standards were set up in 2016, 2017 in the European Union, in Great Britain, different countries determine different strategies and tactics for themselves for the implementation of those open APIs from the point of positioning of this approach on the banking, on the financial organizations, for broader fields. From the point of regulatory approach, it's a tough recommending approach of regulatory policies, and we'll see that depending upon the target, upon the objective set by the financial market, by the country, these open APIs are regulated in different ways. It's more often the case that those countries that set the objective purpose of developing competition and quality of services provided to the clients opt for the obligatory approach towards regulation, obligatory of opening. Those countries that are more oriented on innovations, that they offer, they propose recommendation-based standards. Our way here it's not been easy. Also, it's been quite a long one, of which we talked at the plenary discussion. We started at 2018. We initiated some kind of voting, some kind of approbation, some kind of assessment of those approaches. The first pilot project was started on the FinTech Association I'm representing. Thereof, in the 2020, first standards were published for opening banking interfaces. We implemented some pilot projects of trans-border collaboration. Those pilot projects were implemented that initiated those open data with to connect with the GLONASS open data. The first who joined us was the Promsvyazbank, Bank Tochka, MKB Bank, Tinkoff Bank, Sberbank, and also they're also with us, and this space of pilot projects has become quite wide. And yesterday a very important event happened. The Bank of Russia published a conception of open APIs. That's not a secret. We touched upon that in the plenary session, and today perhaps as part of this discussion we will talk about that. And the main question arises, and today we want to discuss three questions. One of them is who needs those open APIs? Who is interested in having those open APIs provided and implemented? We'll talk also about different balance between the open finances and open data, about partnerships and about open APIs. And the first question I'd like to give to Alexander Chernoshekin. PSB Bank, as I said, is one of the first to have joined these pilot projects, although there is an opinion that major players don't see that obvious this interest of openness. Major players having big pool of clients, they're self-sufficient, and first of all, the FinTech companies, small players are interested in opening those interfaces of a standardization, those interfaces. Alexander, what motives did you have of working on this technology? That is not anything new. It's not a novelty. It's been debated for a long time, and experiments have been run. And what ideas and motives do you have now? Perhaps business models you believe to be quite promising. Thank you. In fact, in addition to those wonderful drive to make the world better through open interface, our objective was quite more pragmatic. At some step we understood that an online borrowing and loans was, from my point of view, kind of innovation. It was kind of ideal from the point of client's way, and we didn't see any competitors in this product among other banks. The only thing we were lacking was some external data exchanges with other banks, especially those who were not striving to provide loans at that time, those who had big client bases. And we figured for ourselves that the connection or involving and exchanging information about APIs with other banks would provide us such data and help us resolve that tasks with available client bases. We went a kind of different way. We went to that bank that is the biggest one, was working with a legal basis. We went through together with them through signing a contract on exchange data. We were ready to pay money, but the colleagues, despite the fact that with plenary session we were talking about, yes, we were open for open interface, we were ready to provide data, said at last instance, how come we will give away our clients, how we could share our data? And now we're not going to sign that agreement, and that was quite a gap between real words and real deeds and words. And we came to the conclusion that despite all the difficulties, sooner or later the regulator would implement this, and it was more advisable to be first on this way, to try to run everything. There's technologies, all the technologies, and we found natural allies. At that time, the bank, Tochka Bank, at that moment was a very good one from the point of client services, from the point of getting clients, but they were not doing any work with legal entities. We had a deep expertise. We decided in terms of providing loans. We had technologies. They had clients, and we could provide loans to clients, and everything will be happy. We decided to try and set up a tune and open interface to exchange data. That was our purpose, and we are waiting for other players to join that platform, because it's obvious that we can't equally efficiently develop all the technologies available. Someone might be more successful in one thing, and someone else is going to be more successful in the other way. This exchange of data might let clients earn more, because on the basis of open data we can provide services same clients the same place. We should understand who is giving loans, who opens the credit tips, and who trains that performs all those currency transactions. Our task was to test these technologies, provide some kind of basis for the future, and make a good foundation for our key product. We have had the best competences in the market, and it's as a result of these pilot projects, implementation of those pilot projects, you had to run the technology. What do you think from the point of further promotion? Is there any future? And the panel discussions there, we heard an opinion. Why major banks? Why do they need those startups for? Jamie Dimon said, why can't we do that on our own? In fact, future is uncertain, unknown, and when those people who I respect and I reckon with their opinion, no one is going to win. And or some models are replaced with some other models sooner or later. We don't know what model is going to become more efficient. I wouldn't underestimate those startups, because when we said we had this contact network in the Telegram, and this access to the data, equal access, enables those startups to become on par with those major players and grow. And we shouldn't underestimate our competitors. On the one hand, on the other hand, our conclusion is that we need more data. We need more openness. That's why when you're producing some unique product, you can implement that product much faster together with your colleagues. And of course, it's natural. Those who are trying to close in this part will lose at the next stage. You shouldn't be afraid of building those open interfaces. Get connected to them and be ready for data exchange. Of course, it will demand some kind of internal work, improvement to your clients' ways, because you need to retain those clients. It's a normal job, normal effort to make. You should step up. It's a positive way for us. I would agree with you here. From my side, the global trend in the business, global technological trend, is combinability, a possibility of taking together several products. And so cubes, sometimes it doesn't make sense to combine many cubes together on your own. A few words. It was interesting to get other players involved in at the personal level of open data. We understand that there's own Wildberries open, and other platforms, they have stronger, and the competition is going to be stronger with them. I wouldn't see that road away as a one-side way. Our zone, for example, Yandex has a bank of their own. They're going to get our data, going to use our data. At the same time, we're not going to use their data. I want to see that road as a two-way road, a multi-sided road. And the DOM.RF is a platform which is considerably bigger than a normal bank, and create those loan organizations. Developing on the previous aspect is open data projects. From your point of view, what other projects? Exchange of data. What other exchange of data might enhance the functionality of target products, improving clients' way, which will enable to create motives for implementation of this conception, this business model. In fact, to get organizations and companies interested in implementing this business model, and not just rather than being pressurized by compliance and regulator to go that way. What is more promising from you? What can stimulate Thank you for the question. Good afternoon. In fact, I'd like to continue that discussion that my colleague has started and partially give an answer to your question in the beginning. You gave in the beginning. It's about recommended nature standards. I completely agree with the idea that was sounded at the first session, that Russia needs healthy and sound competition. That's why what recommendation-based standards are going to be that driver that will enable the different sectors of the economy to develop more intensively. I may be opposed to my colleague from the Promsvyazbank when they say that everyone should be open. They should be found. They should first of all find those niches which that can feel more comfortable from those open data and provide that acquire that business fit. We have been strong in the construction market from DOM.RF company. If you don't know, according to results of some months of this year, we belong to the top 3 as a bank that provides loans. I mean the mortgage loans, and I have 32 departments in the scale in the landscape background of the market is nothing compared to other players. We've been working with historically with big agents network. We're always propagating the idea that we are ready to work with any player capable of attracting clients. And thanks to technologies of solutions of our own, that essentially the bank that were giving that opportunity to integrating with us, we are enabled to build a big business. And it seems to us that this model shows in practice it gives its own results. What I meant here, if on the market, if there is a big number of players, we have 4,300 developers, construction developers, of whom only 3,500 developers are active. The biggest peak occupies not less than 10%. The rest is less. All the other have this plus minuses, standard solutions. Without spoiling the business by default, this exchange of data with the bank with the construction developer should go along that standard of processes or standardized exchange. We think that this task of the regulator's task is to help the RTF to take some ready-made solutions and implement them and make them as kind of recommendation. I can give an example. Alutin will confirm the Moscow Stock Exchange quite a big #1 marketplace, which is capable of generating a big amount of liabilities for a middle-sized company. We understand that the Bank of Moscow is going to develop that through protocols and how the banks are going to be integrated with other marketplaces. Efforts attempts to reduce labor costs, and because integration is quite a complicated process. We see by our own resources, although we are using the same protocol. I'd like to, Kirill, it's a question to you. You took some standard-based, some well-established solutions in the market and turn them and make them into recommendations in order to reduce labor costs. These top epics that are not needed by anyone. From part of a commercial structure, organization, we see that as from the point of money where we and our partners spending on this work, technical work on the money in this entity is part of costs, and we price of funding is going up, and the market is going up by reducing any kind of excess in the rate. We provide opportunities to compete with other players, and let us be honest, we resolve some kind of state tasks regarding accessibility of mortgage loans and accessibility of cheap housing, where for recommendation-based standards. We are for having a broader look at the practices. We are for taking something ready-made, for something working, some kind of profile, and make it recommended based. We can make it turn them into recommendations. And as a minimum, we should touch upon that base, that aspect by discussing the conception of the Bank of Russia. The conception has been published, and Oleg, you forestalled my question to Kirill. What is the position in the tactics of the regulator? What the regulator is planning to do? What initiatives are planned to contribute into the development? Probably not the forced development of these open APIs, and what challenges from the point of development on the whole of the digital market or digital economy might stimulate this transition from closed systems towards open ecosystems that are based on the principles of everything as a service. What the regulator is planning to do and how you see that, and by taking this opportunity, could you say a few words about the conception published? Thank you. I can't but say about the conception. Yesterday it was published. We don't see that feedback, but today at the plenary we have a lively discussion about that. And for all those who haven't heard, a short words about the model. We developed that conception by taking into account the international experience in the Russian market, and including that research that has been run by our colleagues from the IFT. And we came to the conclusion that at the Russian market we need to implement that conception of open finances, which means that we are planning to open through open interfaces not only the banking sector but all the investment insurance segment and microfinance in some parts. And the question is about the time restrictions. And if you see that conception, you will see how we suggest that we should go in terms of implementation, active implementation of the standard, obligatory standards. We suggest that it proposed for the year 2024, and 2024 is going to be a test year where we should recommend, we would be able to prepare for obligatory implementation. What is important, of which we have already said at the plenary session, we see that the AP, obligatory AP, should be used by major players on the market, the biggest players in the market, to stimulate the competition. From my point of view, competition is going to be more sharper and more acute. We will see competition between different financial companies and FinTech ones that have come to the financial market because they have in their ecosystems, they have their financial companies and implements those open APs. We think that the FinTech are likely to use those open interfaces in developing the products for the clients, and we should think together in terms of going towards creating those models of open data in order for the competition to be cross-industrial in terms of internet campaigns to open their data and so that could enrich the financial market. That is very important. The competition should develop quite equally, quite homogeneously. And talking about what challenges might drive the implementation of open APIs, it's not about challenges perhaps, it's about some drivers that can appear in the future on the market. Today we have heard some very good examples. Stock market as a marketplace, which accumulating a huge number of market participants, and I think that as the aggregators of marketplaces develop, they might become that driving force. The more clients they have, the more market participants would want through channels of aggregators marketplaces to implement their products, which is going to be much more convenient through standard protocols. And another thing, why do we believe that API should be implemented as obligatory standards? Oleg has said that the standards should be recommended, kind of recommendations. At the same time, the market some time ago had that opportunity to use that standard FT. They created some kind of seed project in developing a number of standards. They haven't been launched that into as a mass production, but the market was not mature. The biggest systems were not ready because they don't want to to free their clients. We should put clients in at this epicenter that could be able to control and it's about regulatory bodies that would regulate all this. What is more, we see that today there's a number of business cases and corporations, vendors that are actively using open interfaces, although those interfaces not open the APIs, but they are partnership closed. There's vendors who provide services to corporations regarding transactions and regarding book accounting, and they are cooperating with a big number of banks to control transactions. There are different types of integrations. There are costs. We should create such standards and regulations that would enable to reduce costs and regulation, and together with figures and physics and retails. You can see all the banking accounts, but they are working towards some great schemes. It's about security. I think it's about the implementation of interface, open interface, together with demands towards information security. We will cover all the issues. We will get new products, high quality products, and we will have a sound competition. Thank you. And again, your colleagues, you might have seen that what the conception of this period, for this recommendation standards, a obligatory period for obligatory might mean, and it might make sense to think over Oleg's suggestion proposal to take the best, test them and turn them into recommendation based, and from the point of competition, from point of development and provision of quality services, they might become both obligatory and used as recommendation based ones. It doesn't contradict the general principle. Oleg, Kirill have said that they mentioned the Moscow Stock Exchange. I'd like to ask the question to Igor. Well, when moving to the aspect of the day of open data, let us try to slightly discuss that topic. There's a position that by opening data we open the economy, that open data enabled to provide the development of the economy. In the epoch of the technological revolution, in the epoch of transformation, to agree with such statements, and what open information will give us and possibilities of exchange data to the economy. What prospects do you see here, or perhaps some apprehensions? Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank for the work done, despite the fact that the roadmap was to be published until 2017. It was the longest project. In 2018, we had 3 key initiatives: Open Data, APS, and colleagues in the neighboring hall talking about that the marketplace. If all these 3 had been accepted in 2018, our economy and our FinTech would have made much more progress. Why? Because the colleagues today, the plenary session, they were discussing why major players don't want to have those open data, because all those who they have data, he is controlling the clients, because when some FinTech or when some minor bank creates a product, what is important for him is the more data about clients he has, the more qualitative and more beneficial offers he might provide. We, despite the fact that we're the Moscow Stock Exchange is the one of the biggest infrastructure organization, the project we launched, I call is a micro standard of the FinTech. What have we done? We have created a unified approach towards controlling financing of the clients. We have launched 3 products: Osago deposits. In the beginning of this year, we launched international bonds. In your personal office, you can open any finance of this bank. If one unified standard would exist, for example, we would open and use the data of this particular bank might be accessible to all the clients. We had to go another way, take another way. We created a unified API and the banks started during my IP getting connected, and the complexity is that every bank has its own systems, IBS systems. Some banks wrote it about 10 years ago. The banks have to use their own, they make those ABS systems to generate this data. The unified standard will enable to make that simple and to spare an integration. And the second thing, talking about that economic development, is about higher, stronger competition on the market, where I understand that the big players have money, assets to set up their laboratory, their plants. Some players do not have that. The FinTech will undertake that task of qualitative clients' way, and the banks or insurance companies will be able to invest qualitatively into developing their products. And the key moment here of our mission is accessibility of financial products. The most important thing is that it's in favor of individuals that might get more profitable products. They might get more cheaper loans, and some better conditions might be given. It's more beneficial deposits, for example, can be acquired, and those banks that are accessible on our platform have been providing better conditions because on onboarding, they give that high rate on our platform. And by the way, I will tell you that the NKB colleagues for the Finnopolis conference, they have performed a 8% annual interest deposit. This is open for these 2 days. You can download this information. You can get registered according to our federal law 115 and open an account by touching 3 push buttons. Thank you. A question to you, Alexander. Respectively, who and how can win? This is about who is required, whom else do we need in order to have this conception launched. The businesses are red partners in the ecosystems. It's clear regulatory bodies. What regulatory bodies are required? What else can become what else can become that guarantee for openness of the bank? On the whole, example with SPK has been quite exemplary. That all the voluntary stories are good, but at the same time, given that every player separately thinks about his own PKP by the end of the year and about his own profitability, and then about the whole market, the rest of the market, someone should pull that lever and say, okay, this is how it should be, and everyone will be taken obligated. What is needed? We need a bigger number of providers of data and bigger number of players, and those who are ready to provide them. When you plow the field and plant, this is where this field should be plowed and planted. Then with different technologies. Different technologies should be planted and grown, and some major players should be forced. I wouldn't afraid of this. I'm not afraid of this word. To use the unified standards. We should take what has already been working, and all the story of getting acquainted to the marketplaces. Let us have one API for all the cases, and everyone will have to redo the infrastructure, rewrite their IP code, and all the other players going to find it more easier and more convenient to get connected, to join. We'll be spending a lot of time, a lot of money on it. We need to have more data providers, and regulatory bodies should say their word. They have the saying that we are all obligatory to do that. We are obligated to do that. We are all obligatory, and like it happened before, when big players were connecting and the smaller one had less time to do that. Some major players in this particular time, within this particular period, should be enjoying, and this is how this story will become successful. Sergey, I will ask a question to you from your point of view. What about the balance between the private initiative, regulatory efforts, and probably between partnership ecosystems, how it should look like, and what plans, ideas do you have from point of implementation of this conception? I'm for collaboration. I've always been for collaboration, and that's why the FT is a wonderful platform to discuss some moments, to come to mutually beneficial solutions. We should seek some ready-made implementations, and first of all, proceeding from them to make them standard. We have already discussed that. I agree with the colleagues that have said something about that. There are some solutions in the market. We should find that, okay, and take them and borrow them and complete them and make them standard. Talking about recommendation-based ones, it's a question I would regulate tougher from my point of view. If we have a look at the history of some other industries, for example, the payment history of payments, which is close to me, SWIFT, for example, that some time ago, special financial ISO standard, financial transfer, data transfer was created first, developed first. Then ISO 2022, it became de facto the standard for all the systems of financial message transfer. The standard was quite tough at the ISO. It was implemented. It was described quite tough, in tough manner, rigid manner, and some jurisdictions were regulated under some jurisdictions, and we use kind of a unique standard, and which enables to provide this connectivity between different systems, many systems. The regulator should do that. If the regulator needs to create that standard on his own, no, it's not the case. A special standard, a special platform, not all everywhere, but we can arrange a discussion like we're doing now. And if this should be done with the financial market players, of course not. There are some other players in telecom and the retail business who have done something good also, and it should be borrowed and taken and used. Talking about liberalization of data, and again, from my point of view, we can regulate them in terms of having more open data, more accessible data. Of course, it should be done in terms of not all the data, but in terms of biggest part. And dear colleague, all those players that have said that they can do everything on their own, and from time to time, we've been preaching that I've been saying that it's okay. They're cool guys, but still receiving SMS messages from them from that number, with the proposal of taking a card with a limit of 100,000 rubles at some percentage, some interest percent. This is what he's been doing. Has been happening on a regular basis. I know that they have my data because I have visited many of them before. They know everything about me. It means that they can't work with this data. They haven't learned, despite their armies of scientists they're having. And we are discussing some kind of basic infrastructural thing, standardization, regulation. And when we finally achieve all that, we will see an avalanche of data, flow of data pouring on us, accessible to some AB rules. Another problem will arise, will be changed, but another problem still unresolved. Not many people have started to resolve that problem, despite the army of to hire a big army of cool guys, expensive guys, and to try to interpret this, how close our models are close to us, to the models of sales, how adequately this information is used. We have right now. Some guys keep saying that we need more data. Of course, we do need more data. Of course, how much we can work with that. I'm talking about me and about my technological departments and the businessmen that are working in my organization, how much we are able to possess of these data. No, I don't think we can. I don't know. We're learning, but how long a time it might take is not clear. So, clear. We have found that very important topic to discuss, and I think it makes sense to decide how to resolve and what APIs should be the foundation. And what APIs might be recommendation based, or there's kind of a pyramid in my imagination. What APIs are going to be standardized, and the number of these standards. We're going to accelerate that integration, reduce costs, of which Oleg said. There's another aspect, is the partnership. Sometimes we call them closed APIs, and all completely open APIs. And again, some similar aspect was discussed at the first plenary session. Open ecosystems might be closed ecosystems and partnership ecosystems models. I'd like to ask this question to Damir. Alfa-Bank, for example, is considered to be a bank, and Vladimir Tashinsky said at the plenary session that this is offer number one, the mobile application. This bank sets ambitious tasks of transition towards digitalization, complete digitalization. You keep sticking to that model of closed partnership APIs, if I understand correctly. And the question to you, how you think these models can support the growth of development that you need. What expectations in the beginning you had in terms of developing those ecosystems, partnership ecosystems, is if it is successful in terms of paying up for these APIs and these balances. What balances should we have? What plans do you have in terms of that? Thank you. The expectation of paying back, it's a question about paying off time, the time when you get yields on your investments. Innovation technologies for a channel trust to work with the client as an Ethernet bank, just like as a mobile bank. It's an additional point of touch with the client, and today's audience is ready to spend the financial work where it finds it more convenient way of following our client. First of all, the client and his wishes is a basic thing for SIP is a transport that enables to B2C. It enables to use for the client where it is proper. This is why, from point of partnership, IP, we're orienting our clients. First of all, from my point of view, this is the correct approach. We initially, 2 years ago, we thought about that big model about us. We call it Bank as a Service. And we believe the model is primary, and we were going to win the whole world by that. And the market collapsed, and they imploded. The model didn't go, and what the client need is they need finances. When they specifically build in our products, in payments on debit or credit cards and debt cards and investment instruments, exactly where our clients need that. That's why we are going consecutively. We've run lots of experiments. We've had a big number of requests from our clients. We have created our own platform, Alpha ID, Alpha Alta, Alpha ID. It's an ecosystem, seamless ecosystem. Classification of our services and the resources of our partners, which enables to transfer legally the sensitive personal data at the client's permit. Of course, it's done at a high level of security and safety, and it discloses this personalization of some services, customization of clients. Yes, this is what is working now, and out of these aspects we are developing this API for us as an interface, as a competitive edge from the point of clients. In developing the API is how we approach that. When we have that additional standard, we will see a new standard open API. We are for variety. And it's like if there's a very good new interface, if the new model appears, for example, it's great. Of closer design machines, a new format of sending of transmission data from the API is a right way for variety, for multitudes of ways. It's a competition between different standards, competition between different technologies. And in fact, this competition engenders good services and good products. And our attitude as a commercial bank, we want to be leading one from our point of view. This is a very good story. In fact, we are for variety, for multitude of ways, and for competition. The only competition will engender very good products, and because the consumer is a client in most cases, it's good that we're discussing not some models of businesses, but from the point of clients' interest, where we're proceeding from the clients. Thank you. If I would discuss that, we should divide between businesses, models, and infrastructure. I've been working a lot on the stock exchange for many years, and there's a conceptual infrastructure. Just a simple example is bank, a village. But there's a bridge and river between them. Is such a monopoly of this bridge. Let's build two more big bridges so that we should avoid monopoly. One bridge is enough, because two bridges, two infrastructure costs, and triple infrastructural costs. Of course, you can go across that bridge and you have a torch light, and if that bridge is broken, we better have two bridges, so instead of having one car, two cars, okay? And having two bridges between the trees and ACPs is from a point of reliability of infrastructure. It's very important, very costly to create that. It's tremendously costly. And talking about IDs, a very good example is BER ID, Alpha ID, AKB ID, and dozens of more IDs. But it's extremely costly, tremendous money. And you know what they do? They integrate those IDs. Another IDs would be, and the Gossuslugi have their own IDs. All these should be integrated. It incurs huge money spent. And that is spent by our distinguished organization, commercial organizations. All this is undertaken by clients, and we should create single-out infrastructural things that systematize that. We shouldn't build second commercial road, Moscow-St. Petersburg. It should have one but free at the level of the regulatory bodies, at the level of working with communities, to single out that basic infrastructural layer, standardize that, and to make it unique, not to incur double costs, because the clients will have to pay. It's a time, discuss the measure of time is when you have one bridge appear over a number of years. It's a good story. We agree that undoubtedly this bridge might be waited for a long time. We are providing that very seriously. Want to get now, and consequently we are playing into this issue, which is an issue of we're playing down to the clients. It's a key question here. How long shall we wait for this bridge? We were talking about the number of clients. Two major organizations, I could say, they haven't got connected to any NPS in the open data. They are not transferring this open data. It might be some policy you are pursuing. Another idea has come up to me. This FT, their sandbox. On the one hand, we are all working to simplification. So what are we waiting for the central bank to come to us and say to us that you go and do that? Okay, it seems we can get together ourselves and say that okay, we are all for the truth, for everything bad against everything good against everything bad. Let's agree on our own, and the FT platform. All the standards have already been specified. They have already been specified. Let's begin implementing them in a planned manner without having the central bank say to us, come on, let's do it. It's talking about the IT engineers. There's not many of them in the country. And And they do that ID in the one bank, then they go to another bank, and we said, okay, we did that. Let us have a salary, double salary, and we'll do that, and then we'll go to another bank and we'll demand a triple salary. This is the main story. This is what the story goes around. And the Sergey is correct, and the end user is paying, as an individual is paying for all that. This is what we should think about. Let me carry on. The more I hear this interesting discussion, the more I understand that the central bank should help everyone come to terms about that standard. All efforts should be made and serious when we talk about obligatory standards of open APIs, partnership. This model is going to be complementary. We're going to have kind of a set of basic standards. And talking about that, about that layer, the thickness of this layer of standards is what we should launch in order to have this model be developed as a full-fledged model. In parallel, some market participants are going to be creating some business cases, some partnership IPs, and as a consequence, if they are used frequently, it might transform into some unified standards, and the market will come and cascade, because this is very highly demanded. This is what our clients like, and let's make the standard unified, because if you have too many different standards, it's much expensive. And the good news is that we, as a regulator, are planning to create and develop these standards together with the market to make those, to take those available developments of the FT and more advanced market participants should take them, sit down and find those specification standards that can be close as possible to all those working models. It's impossible to take as the basis of the foundation just one standard created by Alpha, by the Sberbank, because everyone has their own specific characteristics. We need to have that kind of golden center to find all the answers to all the questions. I'd like to agree with my colleague from Alfa-Bank and say that, Sergey, I disagree with you. I will explain why. If a company is ready and believes in what they're doing, what business brings to it, and to say that this is kind of analogous, and they see that bridge is not a car bridge, but it can be a railroad bridge that might let another amount of cargoes go along this. Guess they're investing in their own, they're carrying their own commercial risk. We should support them. It's normal, it's the driver of the progress we all want to see. On the other hand, I will agree with you by saying that these discussions, we tend to forget about the state, because the state itself is the main owner of all the data. A big, huge amount of data. When we talk about that some infrastructural layer, unified layer should be built, we're saying that this is a state, that's PGU something, and it should act respond very fast and much better than some commercial projects. And when the state is able to compete in terms of quality, in terms of growth, this is what the ideal country we all would like to live in. And we say that let's ban commercial player to do what he thinks to be required, and it builds clients' way somehow differently. It's just kind of wrong. It's like the wrong discussion is wrong. Then the solutions might be wrong, but discussion is always correct. What I wanted to add, there's very, very interesting aspect regarding who owns all the data. In fact, there are different theories and different approaches towards that. When we, as banks or platforms or mobile operators, when we transfer some data to someone, we need to remember that the generator of these data are individuals and legal entities. We are, as a state, and in fact, and the beneficiary, biggest beneficiary of this data should be the clients. This is what is important, and the correct model. When people share their money, should be benefit from in money terms. This is when the clients themselves will push banks and operate towards exchanging data and obtaining cash back, which the client should trade with data and benefit materially from this. This is when the market will push us ahead. We shouldn't be afraid that we share our data. We should be concerned about the security. We should earn money from that. It's not a simple aspect. We discussed that when we were talking about big major data, who own them, what conditions should be created to commercialize. In fact, it seems to me that in some way we don't have any irreconcilable positions. And again, what I see is, in my imagination, two pyramids. One is open with its big side. The second one is open with its peak. That one that turns it with its peak is about number of obligatory standards that should be fulfilled by everyone. And together in that pyramid, this is the amount of data, state data, that might be earmarked optimal and with an optimal set of standards that would provide the biggest, highest value and contain the biggest amount of data. And in center, the STEM standards that are recommended based, that help us implement fast some business models. And on the top of that is the standards, the partnership standards, with smaller number of data, and this is discussion. And this discussion is good. Our today's session is good because we are going to not to end our discussion. We are not going to cover all aspects. We will try to cover all aspects. We will be discussing the conception, and we will offer our suggestions regarding this conception in terms of its implementation. Dear colleagues, given that we are restricted in time, I suggest that we give an opportunity to the audience to give questions, a few questions. And if anyone wishes to give questions, please introduce yourselves, please. And if there's a question to someone to tell about that, my name is Oleg. My question is, I'm from the city of Perm, a financial organization holding. We have a bank. The banking secret, is it to stay in case of an open day? It's a question about banking secrecy and banking privacy. Of course, the banking privacy here stays here. First, there are two things. First, it is going to be transferred by a client's consent only, and this consent should be preliminary, should be informed. And the first and the second thing is, if you have a close look at the conception, we're talking that conception that quite tough requirements will be put forward from the point of confidentiality of this information obtained by the information user, and from point of information security in terms of protection of channels, in terms of protection of the information kept by the data receiver. And the banking privacy is here to stay. We will remain that banking privacy and secrecy. Any more questions? Hello, Daniel, Banking Review magazine. Thank you first of all for the interesting discussion, for the effort of developing open finance. My question is the following. I haven't familiarized myself with the conception during the pilot projects of standards. The FinTech Association played the function of an operator platform among the open data. In future, when the standards become obligatory, FTA, will it retain the same function? The Bank Russia will undertake that function, or you're assuming some kind of another format to be used? From my point of view, the FTA will remain the very platform where the standard is going to be tested, and the sandbox is going to be demanded by the regulator and all the participants. And of course, like I said, the function of regulator will be played by the Bank of Russia, because the Bank of Russia is going to approve that those standards and control their fulfillment in terms of monitoring the operability of those open APIs, and the function will be retained by the Bank of Russia, of course. Chepur Denis, Bank of Russia. My question is to Alexander, as the most advanced player in this story. The question about the fragility. Today, there's been a session where they told about that those foreign clouds living in the Russian market, about 50. And small businesses suffered because they had been using those services, then they stopped using them because they didn't have any more opportunities. Now, when you are about to present that product, you are showing to the client, and part of the services, other people's services. Use Alpha says that they can create their own parallel. What do you think from this point of view? What's going to happen when some of your partners might undertake these obligations? Diversification of partners will help us, yes, for sure. The more channels of the clients, of approaches to those clients, the more reliable. Different railroad, transportation, aviation, bridging, and well, you name it. And in fact, we're talking about the possibility of having several channels to obtaining and receiving data and working together with the partners. That's what will provide secure that reliability and stability. It's a very good example of all the rhetoric. If we had one bridge, if we had one bank, and that would be sanctioned, and we would have closed all the international accounts on February 24th, and purely technologically, all the accounts, all the settlements between all the illegal entities might be done on one platform by one bank. And we won't need all those sitting here, because earlier identification was possible. Notification was done through the marketplace, financial marketplace. On the rest of settlements inside of the central bank, through the Central Bank of Russia, no more banks were needed. Okay? It should take many banks, many partners, because this ecocentricity of models, this is what provides that stability. We believe that it will enhance our stability rather than reduce it. Thank you. And dear colleagues, to conclude, I would like to give a question to all the participants of this session. 3 questions. The first one is, what do you think what it should be in short term on the horizon of 2 or 3 years, the objective for us, such a model, open finance, open data? And the second question, what model is likely to be implemented as in terms of this is going to be open and combined? And the third question, 3 points, it's about 3 factors of success. What is needed for us to implement this model successfully? I haven't memorized everything, but in terms of the model, the second question, perhaps, we need to have a mixed model. Regulated is everything is not possible. We should do that. We will have many closed IPs of interaction. It's bad. I'm not an opponent of market competition. It doesn't mean that we need just one bank. Commercial services should be a lot of them. Competition should be this very subtle things, but differences. That people who worked for the stock exchange understand that. Talking about differences between different infrastructures, financial market, between basic things, and its commercial services, B2C, B2B, is not the same. That this boundary is quite subtle. It's not been described somewhere precisely. Talking about the factors of success, it seems to me that this is a factor that we are discussing now, and the fact that we're having a set of platforms, a regulator involved, the FinTech Association, where the most interested major biggest players get together, and there are some state players and commercial players that have already been involved and have competencies. In fact, all these factors are available. Unless if we proceed doing like that, everything will be all right. And the first question and second question, the first question, what this kind of philosophical story, I believe that liberalization of data is required, and at the same time, people who are of older generation, young guys, treated absolutely differently. One generation that is going to sit here in 5 years' time, 15 years' time, they won't care about that publicity and and in terms of protection of their personal data. And for us it's relevant, and it's relevant for older generation. The young guys are treated totally different way. Their data are likely to be more accessible, more open, and I think I agree in terms of its commercialization, in favor of the data owner of an individual, to let him decide for himself, to be responsible for every copy, every pence. That's gonna be good. And despite the thing that we are the biggest player that are going along the closed model with a big number of banks and insurance companies, we keep sticking to that conception, open banking, to this particular reason. And this should be open, the conception. I would open it 1-0 open banking. Why? This conception is in favor of the financial insurance sector and microfinance and investment. It seems to me that the main treasury here is the open data, in the openness of the state when the FinTech is about to receive the state services provided by the state and become the carrier of this open data, and all the rest will catch up on. And the financial sector, as part of the financial sector, working very successfully on that. We see some improvements. And what I am concerned with, I'm glad that the Bank of Russia has said a lot about this information security, because just imagine that tomorrow we will see a big number of fintechs, and they would call themselves, they would be licensed, and they won't invest a lot into information security. If we imagine that the biggest player, this Bank, all of a sudden opens its data, there's a big risk of leaking personal data, based upon which some fraudulent operations would grow. And thanks God, we've been in this fintech, and we're gonna look at it closer in terms of penalties and those financial organizations those penalties, that those who break this security should be pretty high and pretty painful. Talk about these answers, and what is of interest is pluralism, plurality. We shouldn't choose on open banking, open data, and all that. There are different areas of businesses, there are different sectors of the economy that currently might find more suitable one of these three conceptions that have been announced. Talking about us, we would open for open data, because we understand that this is a possibility to build models that can be used in business models that can create some kind of a value here and now. In the whole, if you look at this, if you can fantasize, it would be super interesting at the level of the country to have that sandbox when these three things get combined, and we'll try then to distribute the results of this work to other players, so that this effect that would be obtained would be scaled and would be enhanced, would be multiplied. I am in favor of open data on the whole, and the time of experimenting and the experience accumulated among the players is quite big. And what we need is we shouldn't be afraid to go ahead. It's high time we fell into the water, otherwise we would be standing on the shore for another 5 years. It's time we fall into the water. Talking about the partnership, it's obligatory. Open market, open finance, open data should be obligatory. For some, in combination, some partnership, and some standards should be preset for the partnership, so that we don't formulate these kind of standards anew. And I would agree with John that if there is banking privacy, banking secrecy, of course it will stay, but no one will need it, because we all are elected to live in that transparent world, and we'll take it for granted that living in that open world. And this commentary, it's about the same case when the new generation comes and loses their money, and they would treat their personal data in a different way. They won't lose anything, because the same talks we had when mobile banking were implemented, applications, and was set to be more reliable, it was set to be better, and access to one account from million places, this best product at the same time. Faking the signature and stamp on that payment document was easier, much easier. Undoubtedly, I am open for open data, and there are quite big issues in terms of speed. We're ready to this for this, and if this conception was step by step, conception would start doing that. And what is necessary for all of us. And the second question, in terms of second question, the same is going to be developing a partnership like this because our partners need that. It should be developed, and we will see how what balance between open and the partnership ID will appear. The market will decide. We will see. And the main issue here is perhaps finding that business models, the business model. Now, this is not big money. They can't compensate for the amount of costs we're incurring. We're in the beginning of this way. And the first question, what will enable us to a big number of experiments? And the world is very much different, varied, and we should try everything. I believe that open data is the model we should strive to get as soon as possible. The main model. We've been talking about that in our conception. Talking about we're about to start with the open finance to make it more simple for the Bank of Russia. We are not responsible for the other thing that is outside the financial market. We're forecasting today that we should move to the model of open data, open finances, together with the colleagues from the Ministry of Digitalization. We should start working towards that. And how we will see this partnership on open is complementary model. Should have a complementary model, no doubt. And the factor of success is collaboration of the market participant and regulator in this work and this effort. As you have already said correctly, the skill of working with data. You get this data. We should process this data. We should provide to your clients a very good services based upon those data. And in summing up, shortly, briefly, we shouldn't end now. And our aspect has been collaboration, beginning from the plenary session. We heard in the morning today, and undoubtedly the collaboration is the first thing. The second thing is, what I want to say is the day should be memorized in the session that we had before, and the current discussion is somewhat is important step towards working towards that conception. Is an important step in developing this very important approach. 3/4 of this time was devoted to this particular aspects of the session, and I'd like to express my gratitude on your behalf and invite all the participants and invite you to discussing this conception. Thank you, and we're in the middle of a very interesting way. Thank you so much indeed.